Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's revision tutorial number 5 on how to learn effectively with a retrieval chart. I am your Regional Learning Specialist for Biology, Catherine Morritt. In today's session we'll be tackling the 2 dot points, the dynamic nature of populations and how they influence population size, density, composition and distribution, and that ecosystems have carrying capacities that limit the number of organisms within populations that they support and can be impacted by changes to biotic and abiotic factors, including climatic events. How do you feel about the mark you got for your test? Read the feedback from your teacher and reflect on or think about what you did well and what you did poorly. It is now time to use the tactics that you used for the things that you did well and apply them to the parts you'd like to do better on. I hope that you get a chance to watch and listen to tutorial 1 on how to make a tree diagram and dichotomous key. If you didn't do that, I strongly suggest that you do. You should watch all of the tutorials on Schoology and practice the suggestions I make. Each tutorial builds on skills you need to develop to increase your exam fitness. I want you to understand how to learn and how to respond to exam-style questions so that you can apply your science thinking to everyday life, achieve your WACE and get a good ATAR score. We are working in Term 1, Week 8 of your biology program. And when I ask students how they study, most say they do the questions and go over their notes. But there is a smarter way to learn and to study so that you can learn to the depth needed for an ATAR course. As you are aware, the ATAR examiners advise students to study from the syllabus. There is a syllabus study checklist on topics 1 to 4 in the Schoology. Oh, that's not right. The Schoology tutorial folder number 4, along with a short video explaining why you should study with a syllabus checklist. You should also use this when you study. Examiners also advise the student, to answer according to the instruction verb, or as the syllabus calls it, the key term used in the formulation of questions. Today I want to get more specific and focus your attention on how to make effective notes using the syllabus dot points, questions with operational verbs or instruction verbs, and your textbook. In this light, I have built a retrieval chart of the syllabus dot point. The dynamic nature of populations influence population size, density, composition, and distribution. I have included the Nelson page references so that the relevant information should be easy to find. So make notes on this page because this is how you learn and make the learning your own. Let's start at the beginning of the dot point and explore the meanings and characteristics of the terms. You will have seen this picture in previous videos, but this time we will discuss it in terms of population. How many populations can you identify in this picture? Explain why you are thinking this. Estimate the size of the populations you have identified. Size is a feature of populations that can be measured, but size alone does not tell us much about the characteristics or dynamic nature, such as growth or decline of a population. Just like mass and volume do not describe a chemical element or compound, but it is the relationship between the two variables that does describe some characteristics of the element or compound. If we calculate the density of the compounds by the formula density equals mass divided by volume, or rho equals m divided by v, then we can compare the elements and compounds in terms of the property of density. For example, at standard temperature and pressure, the density of water is 1 kilogram per litre, while the density of carbon dioxide is 0.00196 kilograms per litre. This tells us that 1 litre of water has a mass of 1 kilogram. So, calculate the mass of the same volume of carbon dioxide at standard temperature and pressure. If you drew dots to represent molecules of either carbon dioxide or water, then you could show the distribution and density of molecules in a volume of 1 litre. We use measures of density and distribution to describe populations in detail and compare populations, just like we do molecules. So, estimate the density of the orange dogs per square metre of beach. Estimate the density of orange dogs per square metre of beach sand. Estimate the density of the orange dogs per square metre of water. Estimate the population density of the human per square metre. It would be great if you could estimate these and we could discuss it in our next live tutorial. But population density does not tell us as much information as we could when we consider the scale of the areas we are studying. What other factors might we consider when measuring populations? You can think about these as an example. Factors such as the time of the day, the time of the year, the weather, predators, cloud cover, geography of the beach, and perhaps about whether these dogs were invited to a party that day. There are many useful activities in Chapter 5, and I'm wondering if you get a chance to do them. You should have a go at them anyway. So, think critically about these sorts of things as you retrieve information from Chapter 5 about the dynamic nature of populations. If you prepare some responses to these questions, we will discuss them in our first live WebEx in 2 weeks. Until then, I'd like you to watch this movie, How Wolves Change Rivers. In this movie, the narrator discusses the concept of a trophic cascade, but I'd like you to think about it from a point of view of populations. So, can you do this? Explain how wolves affect the carrying capacity of the Yellowstone National Park in the United States of America. Okay, until next time.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.